Welcome to the Corporate Venturing Insider Series, where I interview top practitioners in the CVC world and learn with you the best practices and golden nuggets that they have accumulated over their career. In this episode, we will be learning from Cyril Vancura, partner at imec.xpand. Cyril, could you take a few minutes to share your story and how you got to where you are today?
Thank you, Nicola, for the opportunity to talk about my journey into corporate venturing and also about us at imec.xpand, who we are and what we do. I'm a scientist by training. I did my PhD in Switzerland at ETH in the field of semiconductor technologies and MEMS sensors. And after that, I wanted to get some experience and decided to do a postdoc in the US. I was hired into Bosch, large German corporation, in their research and technology center in Silicon Valley. Turned into not 1 year, but 7 years. From postdoc, I went into a normal research scientist position over there. And at the time, we not only did our own research there at Bosch, but also we did some scouting. We looked for new innovation trends, we looked for new technologies, and as such, looked in different parts of the innovation ecosystem. So what were universities doing? What was funded by DARPA and other entities? And what was the startup ecosystem doing? What were venture capitalists funding? What was startups doing? And so I took part over that part of the startup ecosystem, talking to venture capitalists, etc. And through that, got immersed in the Silicon Valley innovation ecosystem and in the Silicon Valley startup scene. And honestly, that was very new to me. I came from research, I came from Europe, so Silicon Valley to me was very new and very exciting. And it happened to be just at the same time when Bosch started its corporate venture arm. Now, they then hired a person to run the corporate venture arm in Silicon Valley. So the headquarters was in Germany, but they hired a partner for the Silicon Valley office. I just talked to him on the hallway one day and told him about myself and started working with him. While I was still in research, I started introducing deals. I helped with due diligence on topics that were close to me, where I knew about. So I helped with technical due diligence. And despite his first comment when we first met that for the longer term, there wouldn't be a second position in Silicon Valley, 6 months later, I was hired into the corporate venture group at Bosch, being the second hire in Silicon Valley, and then stayed there for 4.5 years in Silicon Valley, helping to grow the team, helping to build up the organization there in the Valley. And after 4.5 years, joined Bosch Venture Capital in Germany. So overall, I was 9 years with them because I stayed in Germany for 4.5 years and went through this journey from different parts of the ecosystem, also different levels in the group. And in 2017, I was hired into imec.xpand, my current fund. That's a new fund that we started. We started being completely operational in 2018. So I joined the team in beginning of 2018. And that was just a big step for me from corporate venturing into institutional venture capital, but with a twist, with a very particular investment thesis. So at imec.xpand, we are an independent global venture capital fund that builds transformative semiconductor and nanotechnology companies, where imec contributes significantly and is a determining factor in the technological success of those startups. So we invest within the imec ecosystem. We invest in companies where we can bring imec to the table to add value to the companies and to de-risk the technologies of the companies. But we are not a corporate venture arm. We have a number of LPs, corporates, institutional investors, as well as governmental investors. And our investment thesis is based on technologies from imec. So we really work closely with imec.
Thank you, Cyril. I think first, imec as a research institute is simply amazing. Cutting edge technologies, you could even say crazy technologies. You clearly have a great partner. I think it's very good you clarified that you're not a corporate VC, but you really do very smart corporate venturing, which is about partnership with the corporates and how you add value. And we will unpack all of that in the interview. But I want to start first with your profile. And you mentioned you did a PhD. I want to understand if you think the PhD is giving you something extra in terms of discipline when it comes to looking at startups? And of course, there is a technical aspect, but I'm more looking beyond the technical aspect. Do you think there is something that came with going through the PhD that's useful for you as an investor?
Yes. And you're absolutely right about the technical aspect. The likelihood that I invest in a startup that did research on whatever 15 years ago, very unlikely. Now, there are bits and pieces, and I've used some of the knowledge and mainly also the network that I've built through the PhD to help some of my startups. But it's really more around the discipline to work through a process, to have a structured thinking process when you look at a new problem. Because let's be honest, if we make an investment in a company, we try to learn as much as possible in a short time frame about that startup in order to make a judgment on an incomplete set of data. And to learn that, it requires discipline and structure. And that is something that you learn in a PhD, to be tenacious and to be structured, to not give up. And that really helps me still today. So I benefit from that. Absolutely, yes.
Very nice. I was biased. So I don't have a PhD, but I'm definitively biased towards the discipline that a PhD brings to the table. Right now, we have an open position for an investment director, and PhD is one of the requirements. Definitively biased here. I like the way you started, which is, I'm science. And I really like that. And I think that your career is totally aligned and resonate with that love for science. How much of that love for science sometimes could bias you too much as an investor, where you fall in love with the technology versus the solution it could bring to the world?
It's a dangerous path to go down. And to a certain extent, I learned the hard way, to the point where one of the first investments that I did was in a company where we thought we had done a very thorough technical due diligence. And we did, but we missed one part of it. And it turned out that was a critical technical issue that we had not assigned enough importance to, that then hampered the technical development of the company. And through that, I learned that technology is not the only thing, and it's not the most, it's a very important part to the development of a startup, but it's not the only part. And we are investing in companies early, and in some cases, and especially in the imec spinouts, we invest even before it is a company, while it is still a project at imec, and we help in the spinout process. This additional view that we bring in helps shape the company, and to a certain extent, we're the bad guys. We always tell them what is needed and why the market is not looking for that technology. They have to find a solution or a problem in the market where their technology is a solution for. Because as a R&D hub, we have that discussion very often with the people from imec. And now that I have gone through the journey and gone to the dark side of investment, I can help the people at imec to also find those problems where their technology is a solution for. And let's be clear, as I said, we make investments in technology heavy companies, and a basis of us is that they have a strong IP portfolio, etc., because we know that it takes time and it is complicated to make investments in that space, and you need a moat around your company, which is IP and technology, so that others cannot easily copy it. But it's not the only thing that makes a company successful.
Okay, so we have our first disagreement. I think that makes you the good guy. Okay. I think that not giving the feedback and the tough feedback is being the bad guy. I think that spending time to help startups to know what's missing makes you the good guy. So how much do you think is needed for you to give feedback to companies that you know you're not going to invest in?
I make it a point to always give honest feedback. I think there might be a reason why I don't invest. And in many cases, it's just that there is no fit to our fund. And as such, it doesn't hurt to give honest and open feedback. And it's not about being mean or anything, but helping. And any kind of feedback usually I would think can help the company to grow. And also for the spinouts, we try to be very honest in our feedback and help them grow. And sometimes ideas progress through a journey, and maybe not the first time it becomes a company, but second or third time it then becomes a company. And we've had that happen. And you can only achieve that if you're open and honest with your feedback. If you just don't get feedback, it will go away and nothing will happen. I'm a firm believer that you always meet twice, and maybe something good comes out of it if you're just open and honest about, that it's right now not the right time to invest.
Very nice. And you're very much investment thesis driven. So it must be very simple to say why you're not investing when it's not part of the investment thesis. But it must be harder to say when it's actually part of the investment thesis, but something is not quite clicking. How do you differentiate the feedback you give in both cases?
You're right. If it doesn't fit our investment thesis, it's an easy discussion, and I might still have an opinion, but then tell the company, that's my opinion. Have you looked at that? Or maybe you should talk to this other person or this other investor. If there is a fit, either in the sense that it is a spin out or even a company that already works with imec and we still decide not to invest, for us, we have to cater to do two things. One is to imec. We cannot invest in every company that works with imec. It's impossible. imec works with a lot of startups, and sometimes the reason is that we already have a similar company in the portfolio, and then it's also for portfolio management. It's an obvious reason why not to invest.
Tell me about Bosch, because you were employee number 2. It nearly feels like you were a startup. How did you build it, and what was the things that you have learned from that time that you're bringing back into imec.xpand?
Yeah. So I was employee number 2 in Silicon Valley, of the group in Silicon Valley. So the overall team was, when I joined, we were about 12 people or so. At the time, distributed between 4 offices, Israel, 2 in Germany, and then in Silicon Valley. But it really was something that we started almost from scratch. And there had been the managing partners that had worked on it for a year or so, had done a very good job and putting the basis together, where they've interviewed a number of corporate venture groups around the world and kind of took learnings from those different groups and put together a fund that was viable as a corporate venture fund, but also as an institutional investor, so that it had financial goals, but always in the context of a large corporate. I believe that you need to find a balance between financial incentives and financial returns for a corporate venture arm, as well as the strategic benefits. Because if you're backed by a large corporation, and without the backing of this large corporation, you're just, sorry to say it, another financial investor. And so you really have to bring value to this corporation, as well as derive value from this corporation. Now, Bosch was, or is, a very conservative company at the time. Its biggest field was automotive, and at the time, automotive was still a very conservative field. So we had to do a lot of educating within the corporation and on a continuous basis, talk about venture capital, talk about startups, and show how we could bring value. And it wasn't easy. It took a long time to establish this corporate venture unit as an essential part within the innovation ecosystem of Bosch. And there were comments that we would waste money, that we would throw money out the window. But over time, we showed that we could bring value. And it was not any particular investment that would make the difference. We were independent enough that we could make investments without a direct link to the business unit. So we didn't need the buy-in from the business unit, but all the investments were made within kind of the strategic ecosystem of Bosch. But through our immersion into the startup landscape and venture capital landscape, etc., we showed new trends. We brought new trends to the business units. And through that, we really added a lot of value to the corporation. And it also, we were one of the catalysts that changed the mindset of Bosch. Through my 12 years that I was at Bosch and the 9 years that I was in the corporate venture arm, the mindset at Bosch really changed dramatically. We were one of the catalysts. There were a lot of other bits and units and bits and pieces that added to that. We were definitely not the only one. And it was something that was driven from the top. And that's very important. We were reporting directly to the CEO. And it was a willing change within the corporation. And then, as I mentioned, we were one of the catalysts to doing that.
Did you have a best practice at the time you could share with the audience about how you share this knowledge in a way that the corporation, the mothership, actually can assimilate?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had interactions with every business unit on multiple levels. So we had on the operational level, we had counterparts in the business unit that we would talk to on a regular basis. That was very often about particular startups. Help us in due diligence. Can you help us? Who can we talk to regarding a technology or a market, etc.? And that kind of helped us. And it inserted know-how about the startup ecosystem into the operational level at this business unit. And then on a yearly basis, we had meetings with every head of every business unit. And there we would show, as you mentioned them before, megatrends. What do we see in the ecosystem? What do we see that we think is relevant to that business unit? And if you do that on an annual basis, there is a story to tell. There's an evolution to tell and show how certain things may influence the business unit going down the road.
If you had to choose a second superpower, what would it be? And it's okay to have only one superpower.
Honestly, right now, I can't think of one. I flourish in this ecosystem where, honestly, it suits me because it puts a filter around me. I think if I had gone to an institutional investor where there is no filter, where you can look at any startup that you want, that'd be probably very difficult for me because I wouldn't know where to go. And what you do then is you build your investment thesis. Now we have an investment thesis that my partners, Peter and Tom, when they started the fund, that they built based on this collaboration with imec. And that's the filter that we have. But that makes it so much easier to go to conferences and then you have those few companies that you want to talk to. Theoretically, if you can invest in anything, you go to Web Summit, you have 5,000 startups to talk to. That's a little bit of an overkill. So for me, this filter is extremely important. And yes, it's to a certain extent the superpower of our fund that we have this filter, that we have this strong partnership that really adds value. We really add value to our startups and through this partnership with imec.
And how do you, maybe it's worth saying, how would you do your elevator pitch of imec.xpand?
imec.xpand is a institutional investor with a very particular investment thesis. That's my one-liner for imec.xpand. We only invest in semiconductor-related companies within the ecosystem of imec.
Very nice. I love it. I really love it. Let me finish on the independent side so you can make your investment. You are 4 partners. Are you trying to drive decision by consensus, or can one partner believe so much that he can have his silver bullet? How do you make your decisions so far for your investments?
We are 4 partners and we make consensus-based decisions. What we think would be the right way. In a team of 4, it makes sense to have a consensus and to not make decisions too complicated.
Very nice. So let's say 3 people believe and 1 is sure not, then you wouldn't invest.
Unless we convince this one person, but he has to say yes. If he says no, it's a no.
It's interesting because you're driven by your investment thesis, you're driven by the technology underneath. I think the consensus helps to really challenge everyone not to have any gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody of us has different strengths. So it's not only one partner talking to the company. And in certain cases, we bring a partner that has certain experience. Peter, one of our partners, has done several startups, so he has a lot of operational experience. We will bring him in to also challenge the company and hopefully also add value to the company over time.
So does that mean that all your investments, every 4 partners need to meet with a startup you would be looking at investing, or not necessarily?
Yes. So we organize meetings with all partners. So absolutely.
Very good. So thank you for the interview. I'm going to ask one final question, which is really about what are you most excited to invest in next?
There are so many things. We have so one area that I find extremely interesting is photonics. We have made 2 investments in the photonics area for compute, but I believe that there are many other opportunities for photonics down the road. Photonics is established in certain parts of the ecosystem, for example, communication, etc. But there's many other areas where it can be leveraged. Compute is now one, sensing maybe another one. So that is something that I think, with all the advances that have been made in this ecosystem, where I believe there will be opportunities down the road.
Breakthrough technologies that are just getting mature enough that they could be deployed in many more applications. Yeah. Very good. Cyril, it was a pleasure talking with you and learning from you and your experience and how you differentiate and how you stick to your investment thesis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicola, for the opportunity to share, and really looking forward to meeting you down the road and one of our co-investments actually that we now have together.
And make more co-investments.
Exactly.